It was Christmas Eve, and the city streets were alive with the usual holiday bustle. People were hurrying around, finishing up their shopping and eagerly looking forward to the warmth of home and family. But not everyone was caught up in the holiday cheer. On one of those cold streets stood a young boy named Alex. Alex wasn't out there waiting for the usual holiday festivities. His shoes were worn down from the cold, his jacket barely kept the winter air at bay, and his eyes reflected a weariness that no child his age should know. At just 10 years old, Alex had spent far too many nights sleeping under the stars, bouncing between shelters, and wondering what it would be like to have a place to truly call home. He wasn't asking for toys or video games like most kids his age. He had a wish that went far deeper than that, a wish that, on this Christmas Eve, seemed almost impossible. He dreamed of a family who would take him in, a warm bed, and a Christmas dinner that didn't come from a can. As he stood alone watching families pass by, he couldn't help but wonder if anyone would ever offer him that kind of hope. Could anyone really care enough to change his life? Was there any possibility for someone like him to find happiness, or was he destined to be alone? What Alex didn't know at that very moment, though, was that a man known for making the impossible possible had been paying attention. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur behind companies like Tesla and SpaceX, was on the verge of doing something that would leave Alex, and the world, absolutely stunned. This wasn't your average Christmas miracle. This wasn't just about toys or money. This was about transforming a life in a way that would show just how powerful kindness can be. Stick with me as we dive into the unbelievable twist that would turn Alex's Christmas wish into a reality in a way he never saw coming. This is a story of generosity, surprise, and the magic that happens when someone chooses to make a difference. Alex grew up on the edge of the city, in a small apartment that didn't feel much like home. The walls were thin, and the constant noise from the street made it hard to sleep at night. In his neighborhood, hope was a rare thing. Most people were just trying to survive, getting through the day without asking for anything more. Alex didn't have the latest toys or the nicest clothes, and family dinners around the table felt like something from another world. Instead, Alex spent many nights going to bed hungry, with only the dim glow of a flickering light to keep him company. His mom, Sarah, did everything she could to care for him. She worked long hours, often leaving before Alex woke up and coming home late, exhausted and stressed. Despite everything, Alex loved his mom more than anything. She was his rock. Even when things seemed impossible, she would smile at him and say, "We'll make it through this, Alex. I promise." But as the years went on, things didn't really get better. They stayed the same, or sometimes even got worse. Alex could see how much his mom was struggling. He watched her hands shake as she counted change at the grocery store, and how she sat at the kitchen table late at night, staring at bills, trying to figure out how to make the money stretch for just one more week. It broke his heart to see her so worn out by life. He didn't want to be a burden to her, but sometimes it felt like there was nothing he could do to help. School wasn't much easier. While the other kids talked about their vacations and the new video games they had, Alex spent most of his time alone, sitting quietly in the back of the classroom. His mind wandered as his stomach growled, or when he heard the all-too-familiar sound of his mom's car breaking down again. He couldn't help but feel invisible, like no one really saw him for who he was. He watched other kids laugh and play, and he wondered why life couldn't be that easy for him. Why couldn't he have a home filled with warmth, where the biggest worry was what to have for dinner, not how to pay the rent? But Alex never gave up. There was a quiet strength inside him that kept him moving forward, even on the hardest days. Deep down, he believed that one day things would get better. He didn't know how or when, but he couldn't shake the feeling that life had something better in store for him. Alex's dream wasn't about fame or fortune. He wasn't interested in toys or gadgets. What he wanted more than anything was a family, a real family. A place where he didn't have to worry about his mom's health or whether they would have enough to eat. He wanted to feel safe, to have someone look after him, just as his mom looked after him, even though she was struggling herself. So, every night before he fell asleep, Alex would make a wish. It was simple: to be happy, to find a family that would care for him, to have a life filled with love. He didn't ask for much, just something real, something that would give him hope. As the days passed, Alex's wish became stronger. He focused on his schoolwork, helped his mom however he could, and held on to the belief that one day something would change. What he didn't know was that his life was about to shift in ways he never could have imagined. Someone was about to come into his life who would show him that even the smallest acts of kindness could turn a life around. This Christmas, Alex's wish would come true. But it wasn't going to happen in the way he expected. It was going to be bigger, more unexpected, and more life-changing than he ever imagined. And it all started with one powerful wish, and the belief that dreams could come true. The week before Christmas, Alex started to notice something was off with his mom, Sarah. She had always been strong, keeping a smile on her face no matter how tough things got. But lately she seemed different. There was a tiredness in her eyes, and her cough had become more frequent, each one more raspy than the last. She tried to brush it off, telling him she was just under the weather and that everything would be fine. But Alex wasn't so sure. Something wasn't right. One evening after a quiet dinner of soup, Sarah put her spoon down, her face suddenly pale. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as she stared at him, her eyes full of worry. "Alex," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm not sure how we're going to make it through this winter. The car is breaking down more and more and I can't keep going like this. I've been looking for a better job, but nothing's working. I feel like I'm failing you." Alex's heart sank. He could see the tears welling up in her eyes, though she quickly wiped them away, not wanting him to see her vulnerability. He wanted to say something, to tell her everything would be okay, that they could figure it out together. But how could he? What could he say when he had nothing to offer her but his love? It didn't feel like enough. "I'm sorry, Alex," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know you want more, but I don't know if I can do this anymore." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. His mom had always managed to stay strong for him, but now it felt like the weight of the world was crushing her. It wasn't just the money or the car breaking down anymore. It was her losing hope. And that was the hardest part for Alex to watch. That night, as the wind howled outside, Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The streetlights flickered, and he could hear the occasional sound of a passing car, but the world outside felt distant and cold. His mom had always told him that things would get better, but now, in the silence of the night, he wasn't so sure. How could things ever change when they had been stuck in this cycle for so long? For the first time, Alex felt the full weight of everything his mom had been carrying. He realized he couldn't wait for someone else to make things better. He needed to do something. But what? He was just a boy. What could he possibly do to change their lives? The pressure of it all felt overwhelming. He didn't know how to help, didn't know where to turn. The idea that Christmas might come and go without anything changing hit him like a cold wave. He had always believed that someone, something, would come through to make things right. But now, staring at the darkness around him, he felt helpless. But despite everything, Alex refused to give up. A small voice inside him told him that he couldn't let his mom's tears be the end of their story. He wasn't sure how or when, but he knew he had to do something. This Christmas had to be different. He couldn't keep waiting for change to come. He needed to be the one to make it happen. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Alex made a promise to himself. He wasn't going to let his mom's struggles define their future. Somehow he would find a way to make this Christmas a turning point, to give his mom the happiness and hope she deserved. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to try. As the days ticked closer to Christmas, the cold seemed to bite a little harder, and the weight of everything on Alex's shoulders felt heavier with each passing hour. But Alex had a plan, or at least he thought he did. He knew he had to find a way to make this Christmas special, something to show his mom that they weren't alone, no matter how tough things had been. It was December 23rd, and Alex was walking home from school, his mind racing with thoughts of how to make things better. He didn't have much money, just a few coins he'd earned from doing odd jobs around the neighborhood. But Alex knew that money wasn't what mattered. It was something deeper, something that didn't cost anything. As he passed the small park near their home, he noticed a family sitting on a bench, huddled together under a tattered blanket. The father, looking worn out and tired, held a sign that read, "Homeless. Anything helps." The mother stared at the ground, her face kind but weary. The two young boys sat quietly by their side, their eyes wide and filled with a quiet sadness that Alex knew all too well. He couldn't just walk by. There was something in those boys' eyes that made him feel a rush of empathy. Maybe it was the way they seemed so lost, or maybe it was the reminder of his own struggles. But whatever it was, Alex felt an overwhelming urge to do something. He hesitated for a moment, looking down at the few coins in his pocket. He didn't have much, but it was something he could give. With a deep breath, he pulled them out and walked over to the family. Kneeling in front of them, he held out his hand. "Here," Alex said quietly, offering the coins. "I don't have much, but I hope this helps." The father looked up, surprised. For a second he didn't speak, he just stared at the coins in Alex's hand. But then his face softened, and with trembling hands, he accepted the small offering. "Thank you, son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means to us." The mother smiled gently, her eyes full of gratitude. The younger boy, his face lighting up, reached out and gave Alex a shy high five. Alex felt a warmth spread through him. It wasn't about the money, it was about the gesture. For a moment, everything else faded. He wasn't just helping them, he was connecting with them. It was a real act of kindness, one that came from his heart. Even in the hardest of times, this small act reminded him that kindness could make a difference. As Alex stood to leave, the family called out to him. "God bless you, young man," the father said, his voice full of emotion. Alex smiled softly, a sense of pride swelling within him. It wasn't just about giving money, it was about being seen, about showing someone they weren't invisible. It was proof that even in tough times, kindness could be a light. On his way home, Alex felt lighter. The heavy weight he'd been carrying seemed just a little less daunting. He didn't have all the answers and he wasn't sure how to fix everything for his mom, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not after seeing the difference a little kindness could make. That night, as Alex sat beside their small, flickering Christmas tree in the living room, he looked at his mom resting on the couch. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a while, Alex felt hopeful. He had learned an important lesson that day. It wasn't about big gestures or grand changes, it was the quiet, small acts of love and compassion that mattered most. With that, Alex made a promise to himself. He would keep going. He would stay strong for his mom and together they would face whatever came their way. Christmas wasn't about the presents or the decorations. It was about love, hope, and the power of caring for others, no matter how small the gesture. The days after Alex's act of kindness were quiet, but they weren't as peaceful as he had hoped. The holiday season loomed ahead, but with it came a creeping doubt. The warmth he had felt from helping the homeless family slowly started to fade. Instead of feeling proud, Alex found himself wondering if his small gesture had made any real difference at all. One evening, as he sat at the kitchen table, his mom was busy in the other room. He couldn't stop thinking about the family he had helped. He had given them all the money he had, but would it really make a difference? Maybe they would buy food with it, maybe not. What if his small act of kindness didn't change anything in the long run? What if it was just a temporary fix, like a drop in an ocean too vast to notice? His thoughts drifted to his own situation. The nights he and his mom spent scraping together enough money to keep the heat on. The way his mom worked long hours and still came home worried about bills. Was he just another kid dreaming of things that were too big, too out of reach? Could a few coins really make a difference when everything else in life felt so hard? Alex stared down at the chipped mug in front of him. A small voice inside his head told him that it hadn't been enough. Maybe it never would be. He wasn't a superhero. He was just Alex, an ordinary kid in an ordinary life. What impact could he really have, in a world that seemed to keep pushing them down? Just as the doubts swirled in his mind, his mom's voice broke the silence. "Alex, honey, I was thinking we could go out and get some more decorations for the tree. Maybe it'll help make this Christmas feel a little brighter." Her voice was hopeful, trying to keep the spirit of the season alive, but Alex wasn't sure he could feel the same way. He wanted to smile for her, to give her that smile she always seemed to need, but his heart wasn't in it. How could he pretend to be happy when they were still struggling, still facing the same battles they always had? As the doubt settled deeper, Alex realized he was caught between two things. On one hand, he desperately wanted to do more, wanted to change their situation, wanted to make life easier for his mom. But on the other hand, he felt powerless. No matter how much he tried, there was only so much he could do. He wasn't able to fix everything. And that truth stung deep in his chest. He pushed the thoughts aside, but they lingered, like a shadow that wouldn't go away. Would his kindness matter in the end, or would he always feel like he was falling short, unable to do enough? In that moment, Alex wasn't sure what the future held. He wasn't sure if one small act of kindness could change anything. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to stop trying. Even if it meant facing doubt and uncertainty every step of the way. The unexpected gift. The morning after Alex's moment of doubt, everything changed. He was sitting by the window, lost in his thoughts, watching the quiet street. His mom was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared breakfast. They weren't expecting anyone, so when the doorbell rang, Alex thought it was probably just someone passing by. But when it rang again, he stood up, confused. Opening the door, he was met with a man standing outside. He looked warm in a coat, with his hands tucked in his pockets and dark sunglasses shielding his eyes. Alex didn't recognize him, but the man smiled kindly. "Hey there, kid," the man said, his voice calm and confident. "I think I'm looking for someone named Alex." "That's me," Alex said, still puzzled. "What do you need?" The man's smile grew wider, and he reached into his coat pocket. "I heard about what you did. You helped that family with your last bit of money, right?" Alex's heart skipped a beat. How did this stranger know about that? He had only told his mom. I guess so, but how do you know about that? The man chuckled. It's a small town. Word travels fast, especially when it's about someone doing something good. What you did didn't go unnoticed, Alex? Before Alex could ask more questions, the man pulled out an envelope from his coat and handed it to him. This is for you, he said, his tone turning more serious. Alex's hands trembled slightly as he took the envelope, tearing it open. Inside was a check. Not just any check. It was a large amount, enough to cover their rent for the next few months, maybe even longer. Alex's eyes widened in disbelief. Wait, is this for me? He stammered. But I didn't do anything special. I just helped out. The man nodded. Sometimes, doing the right thing has a way of coming back to you when you least expect it. This is from someone who saw your kindness and wants to help you in return. Alex couldn't absorb it all at first. He never imagined that a small act of generosity would lead to something like this. It wasn't just a handout, it was a reward for being kind, and it was changing everything for him and his mom. But, who sent this? Alex asked, still trying to wrap his head around it. The man smiled, his look thoughtful. It doesn't matter. What matters is that someone saw your heart, Alex. And sometimes that's all it takes to change a life. With that, the man turned and walked away, leaving Alex standing in the doorway with the envelope in his hands. As the door clicked shut behind him, Alex felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. The doubts that had clouded his mind faded, replaced by a sense of awe and hope. For the first time in a long while, Alex realized something important. Kindness wasn't just about giving what you had. It was about being open, about sharing with others. And sometimes, the world would find a way to repay that in ways you never could have imagined. Alex's path had changed that day, not just because of the money, but because he had learned that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to something much bigger than he ever expected. A new beginning. In the weeks following that life-changing visit, Alex's world began to shift in ways he never saw coming. The unexpected money wasn't just a financial lifeline for him and his mom, it was a sign that better days were ahead. What started as a moment of doubt and uncertainty turned into a quiet revolution in their lives. A financial relief and a weight lifted. At first, Alex struggled to fully grasp the change. He had always believed that good things didn't just happen by chance, but the check had proven him wrong. His mom was able to pay rent without stress, something they hadn't been able to do in a long time. For once, they didn't have to worry about bills piling up. They could breathe easier. But for Alex, the real transformation wasn't just about the financial relief. It was something deeper. He had given his last few coins to a family in need, and now something greater had come back to him. That small act of kindness had not only changed his own life, it had made him realize how powerful kindness could be. It had the power to transform, to shift the direction of someone's life. Even the smallest act of goodness could create a ripple effect. Recognizing the change around him. One afternoon, as Alex walked through town, he noticed something different. People were smiling at him, nodding in recognition. It wasn't anything huge, but it was enough for him to feel a change. They knew what he had done. His generosity had been noticed, and now, Alex wasn't just another kid in the neighborhood. He was someone who had shown kindness when he had nothing to offer. That, it seemed, was something worth recognizing. His mom's transformation. And it wasn't just Alex who was changing. His mom, too, was lifting the weight of her own worries. The tension in her shoulders had eased. There was laughter in their home again, and Alex could see how much this unexpected turn of events had lifted her spirit. For the first time in a long while, they were starting to rebuild, to look forward instead of always battling through the same struggles. Reconnecting with Mrs. Harris. But the real turning point came when Alex saw Mrs. Harris, the woman from the family he had helped, sitting alone on a bench at the park. He hesitated for a moment but decided to approach her. "Hey, Mrs. Harris," he greeted gently. She looked up, surprised but happy to see him. "Alex, I didn't expect to see you here," she said with a soft smile. "How are you doing?" Alex asked, his voice sincere. She sighed, her smile fading slightly. "It's been tough, Alex. But I'm getting by. It's people like you who keep me going." Alex paused, surprised. He had never realized that his small act of kindness had had such an impact on her. Mrs. Harris had her own struggles, but seeing his generosity had inspired her to keep pushing forward, just like Alex had. Their conversation lasted longer than Alex expected. They talked about life, about the challenges they each faced, and about how even small acts of kindness can help others find the strength to carry on. Alex left that conversation with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't about the money, it was about connection. It was about showing up for people, lifting them up when they needed it most. giving back to the community. As the months went by, Alex became more involved in his community. He volunteered at the local shelter, helping others who were facing struggles just like his family had. He realized that even the smallest action could make a difference. His life was no longer about just surviving, it was about giving back and making the world just a little bit better. Transformation and confidence. Through all of this, Alex grew in ways he hadn't imagined. He became stronger, more confident, and more sure of his place in the world. No longer did he doubt himself or his worth. The kindness he had shown had sparked something bigger than he could have ever expected. And in the process, Alex had become someone who could truly make a difference. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, his mom looked at him with pride in her eyes. "You've come a long way, Alex," she said quietly. "I always knew you had a big heart, but now I see how much strength you have inside. I'm so proud of you." Alex smiled, his heart full. He had done something good, and in return, his life had been transformed in ways he never could have imagined. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the people he had touched, the lives he had impacted, and the strength he had found within himself. A quiet evening of reflection, finding peace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow across the sky, Alex sat on the porch next to his mom. It had been a long time since he felt this kind of peace. No stress about bills, no looming worries about what the next day would bring. The challenges they once faced felt like a distant memory. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the weight of the world, Alex felt a quiet sense of hope settle over him. The transformation that went deeper than money. Looking at his mom, Alex could see the change in her too. Her smile, once burdened by worry, now reflected a sense of calm. She didn't just look happier, she looked stronger, as if the hardships they'd faced together had made them both more resilient. It wasn't just about the money that had come out of nowhere, it was about the way they had both changed, how they had come to understand that kindness and generosity were not just things to do every once in a while, but ways of living. Alex had always thought that helping others was something you did when you had extra to give, but now he saw that kindness was about sharing what you had, even when you thought you had nothing left. Understanding the impact of kindness. Alex thought back to Mrs. Harris's words, "It's because of people like you that I've found the strength to keep going." He had never fully understood the impact of his actions until now. A small act of generosity had rippled through his life and touched others in ways he couldn't have imagined. He realized that the kindness he had shown had not only changed his own life but had sparked something in others as well. Facing the future with confidence. With a deep breath, Alex turned to his mom and said, "I think we're going to be okay." It wasn't just a hopeful thought, it was a deep, certain feeling that no matter what came next, they had the strength to handle it. His mom smiled, squeezing his hand gently. "I know we are." They sat in silence for a few moments, the evening air cooling around them. No words were needed. They had come a long way together, and the future, though still uncertain, seemed less daunting now. They would face it with the same strength, love, and belief in kindness that had carried them through their struggles. And for Alex, that was enough. He had learned that no matter how small the act, kindness could change everything, starting with himself. The power of kindness. As you reflect on Alex's journey, take a moment to think about the impact of kindness. Imagine just for a second if you could change someone's day or even their life with a simple act of compassion. What would that look like for you? Would you help someone struggling on the street? Lend a hand to a neighbor who feels alone? Or maybe just offer a listening ear when someone needs it most? We often think of kindness as something small, but as Alex's story shows, even the smallest gestures can spark something much bigger. It's not always about the grand gestures or the things you can buy, it's about being there for someone, showing you care when it matters most. The power of kindness lies in its simplicity. You can make a difference. Every day you have the chance to make an impact, no matter how big or small. Alex's story is a powerful reminder that kindness is never wasted, even if you don't see the results right away. It can transform not just the person you help, but you as well. So ask yourself, what can I do today to bring a little hope into someone else's life? Whether it's a kind word, a small donation, or simply offering your time, your actions matter. Join the kindness movement. If Alex's story resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a little encouragement. Let's keep this chain of kindness going. By spreading hope and inspiring others, we can make a real difference in the world. Like and subscribe to stay connected with a community that believes in the power of kindness. Together, we can create a ripple effect of positive change, making the world a better place, one small act at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, small acts can create big changes. Let's make the world kinder together.